Okay, I am here with Ken Klinker for a very special spooky Halloween episode of the Happiest Retirees podcast. Ken, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thanks for asking me.
Of course, yes. So I want to get right into your core pursuit, your passion of carving pumpkins. Tell me all about it.
Okay. Well, I've been carving pumpkins for about probably 30 years now. I kind of started out when I was a single father, and I would get a couple of pumpkins and carve them for my kids, and we'd set them out on Halloween with the little triangle eyes and nose and little smiley face, toothy grin. And then one year I decided to buy one of those kits that you can buy at almost every grocery store now from Pumpkin Masters, which have some patterns on them and little saws and a little thing to poke holes in the pumpkin so you can get the pattern. And I decided to carve one of those. Well, I spent a couple hours poking all the holes and carving the pumpkin, and I looked at it and thought, well, that was a big waste of time. That doesn't look like anything until I put a light inside it. And as soon as I put the
Right.
light in, the picture just popped out at me, and I just got hooked on carving these patterns into pumpkins. So from then on, I started carving a few pumpkins every year, and I'd set them out in my front yard. And pretty soon I would be carving, I don't know, 10 or 15 pumpkins, and I'd take them down to the courthouse where I worked and put them up on as a display and
At the
on
courthouse.
Halloween. Yeah, and the kids would come to the courthouse and they'd all ooh and ah over these pumpkins that I had set up. And the people at the courthouse wanted me to teach them how to carve pumpkins, so I'd do pumpkin carving displays with them, and so eventually, I got to the point where I was carving like 30 or 40 pumpkins every year, and I had to do it within about a week of Halloween so the pumpkins wouldn't rot. And
Oh, right.
I was getting to a point where I'd found a couple of websites that had pretty elaborate patterns on them, and like I would carve Jack Sparrow, and it'd take me 5 or 6 hours to carve this Jack Sparrow pumpkin, and then the next day I had to throw it away after Halloween.
Right,
So
right.
I thought, well, this is kind of crazy. Well, some of the places that I was finding patterns, people were talking about carving foam pumpkins, and
Oh, right.
and they're just a hollow pumpkin that looks like a pumpkin, but it's made out of foam and it's hollow. And so I thought, well, let me try doing that. Well, I there were some tutorials and I did some experimenting and stuff, and eventually I got to where I was carving, 20 or 30 of those every year, but then I was able to keep them.
Right.
and
Yes.
and the next year then I would start over again, and so eventually my collection built up. Well, um, at some point I realized that these pumpkins cost quite a bit. You can get them at Michael's or Home Depot or Joann's or different places that sell these foam pumpkins. uh, and I thought maybe I could sell some of these and help pay for my hobby.
Ah,
And,
yes.
and knowing that most crafts don't pay for themselves, uh, people make stuff, but it's very seldom that they can get their money back out of them. Well, I carved a few for friends for gifts, and occasionally somebody would ask me for one, and I would sell it to them. And finally, I decided I'm going to make an Etsy page. So I made the Ken's Pumpkin Patch Etsy page, and I put on a bunch of pumpkins that I had carved and tried to sell them that way. And so over the last several years, I've sold around a little over 200 pumpkins to
Wow.
people on there, plus the ones that I sell locally, kind of by word of mouth. And so they end up paying for the ones that I carve that I keep for myself. Right now, I've got or last Halloween at least, I had a little over 400 pumpkins in my pumpkin display.
Wow.
And so I've built racks out of PVC pipe and shelving, and I have about 6 layers of pumpkins on surrounding my front yard, and really, I set those up in my front yard. The last couple of years, I've had them up since the 1st of October through Halloween, and people come by every night looking at them, and it's just a great hobby. I enjoy it a lot, and people seem to enjoy it, and that's really the big satisfaction, is being able to have people come and kind of be awed by these pumpkins.
Do they come? Do you have them up all year, or you have them up just around Halloween?
Just I'd put them up in the month of October.
Oh, I see. Okay. And do you get big like groups of people coming by?
Yeah, yeah. There's times when there's probably 100 or more people out there looking at them, and then it kind of ebbs and flows throughout the month. But I've got kids in the neighborhood that come by every night. They're Before they go to bed, they have to come over and look at the pumpkin display before, and their parents say, "Yeah, every night we bring them over here and look at it." So
You're single-handedly keeping kids from their bedtime, I
yeah, there are a few that are like that.
think. Yeah. And I wonder if, yeah, I bet around when I was a kid, there was always, people around the neighborhood, who there was like always a legend, like, did you go by that one house that has the blah, blah, blah? And you're that house. You're
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
When a lot of times, if I introduce myself to somebody at church or somebody at school, or in the neighborhood, they say, "Oh, you're the pumpkin guy, right?" And so yeah, a lot of people know. They don't know me personally, but they know where the pumpkin house is. So
Yes. And at this point, are you breaking even so that you aren't, shelling out your own money to do it? Like
yes, yeah,
you are.
I can carve enough. I So far this year, I've carved about 6 or 8 pumpkins for customers from on my Etsy page, and then I've carved 4 or 5 that I'm just going to keep for myself, and I can pay for the ones that I keep by the ones that I carve for other people. So
It's a pretty
it's
sweet setup. Yeah.
yeah, it's kind of a nice having a nice hobby that'll pay for itself.
Yeah. Tell me about some of the designs, some of the most spectacular or weird or scary designs you've
Okay.
done.
Well, one of the most popular ones is Jack Sparrow,
Okay.
and I wish I could kind of show you some pictures of some now on this broadcast, but it's just a picture of Jack Sparrow, and some pumpkins I just cut through everything, and then the light shines through. Some of them you cut through part of it and you shade part of it,
Oh,
and you can get a lot of detail on the Jack Sparrow one. That's one that's cut through and shaded, and he really, I mean, you can instantly recognize that this is Jack Sparrow. I
from
do
and for people who don't know, from Pirates of the Caribbean, right? The
Right,
the Johnny
yes,
Depp character.
you
Yeah.
right, yeah.
Yeah.
So I've done quite a few different pumpkin patterns. I've got about 20 or so Harry Potter
Oh,
patterns that I've done. And when I put them on my shelves, I put a white light in all my Harry Potter ones, so that kind of collection of Harry Potter pumpkins kind of stands out by itself.
yes. Yeah.
I do a lot of Disney characters. I've got all the Seven Dwarfs and Snow White and the evil stepmother, let's see. I've got quite a few that are just like typical Halloween characters, like Dracula's and Frankenstein's and mummies, and just I try to do a little bit of something for everybody. I don't know if you're familiar with the cartoon Bluey.
Yes. Yeah.
That was a popular in the last couple of years because
Yeah.
Bluey's become very popular. I did a Barbie one last year when the Barbie movie came out, and I had a zombie Barbie pump pattern that I did. So
How did you do Barbie? How do you do a Barbie pumpkin?
well, it was just a silhouette of Barbie, and
Wow. Okay.
and then silhouette. The zombie one was a silhouette, but she had kind of, I can't remember, a gruesome mouth or something. I forget what it was, but anyway, you could tell it was a Barbie, but she had a gruesome face. So,
Oh,
uh,
I see. Okay.
uh, yeah. So, um, you know, I- I've got there's a website called stonykins.com, and
Okay.
he's got over 14,000 pumpkin patterns on there.
Wow.
He basically does pumpkin carving for a living. And so, he carves hundreds of pumpkins for people that he sells them to them. But he's also got this website with all these patterns on it. And then there's tons of tutorials, and there's people can ask questions, and other people that carve pumpkins will answer, oh, this is the tool I use, or this is how I did this effect, or whatever. And so that's where I get most of my ideas. One of the things that I do that's kind of unique is I've gone and searched the internet for optical illusions.
Ooh.
And I've done several pumpkins that are optical illusions that I don't see many other people doing those. And
How does that work? What does that mean? What?
well, there's like these squares that they're drawn so they look kind of like they're maybe a pyramid through with the shading and everything, except that they're flat, but they look three-dimensional.
Oh,
And
okay.
so I've been able to figure out how to do that on a pumpkin, and then and those
Wow.
are very popular. Kids just look at those and go, "Wow, that's cool." There's some that I cut out just very tiny pieces out of it, but it's like a snake that twists all around and swirls all around, and it's um, just really fun to look at. But it looks like it's three-dimensional, kind of coming out at you. So that's
It's
always fun.
yes. In fact, you've had several newspaper articles and TV stations come and interview you, I think.
Yep, yeah, I've had some of them come out uh, to the display and have interviewed me, and a couple of times I've packed up a few pumpkins and taken them into the TV studio, and then do a it takes about 4 hours to get the whole thing in there and set up and everything, and then there's like a 30-second piece on the news. So
Yeah.
I don't do much of the traveling to the studios anymore. I figure if they want to come and talk to me, then that's good. But
Yeah.
so I've done that several times, and then I've had several feature articles in the newspaper to kind of say what I do and show some pictures and try to get more people. That's always my big goal, is to get as many people as I possibly can to come and take a look at the pumpkins that I've carved.
Yeah, absolutely. Is this the local, so you live in Farmington, Utah, correct?
Right. Mhm.
Is there like a Farmington Gazette or something that or who's interviewing you?
Well, I've been interviewed by the Salt Lake Tribune, which is
Oh,
really the
wow.
biggest paper there, and then the Davis County Clipper has interviewed me a couple of times,
Wow.
and I guess those are probably the main ones that have actually done articles. I think there's been probably 4 or 5 over the years.
And after today, you'll probably be on the Today Show and
Yeah, well, I'm
you know.
hoping that. One of
Yeah.
the funnest things I did actually was a couple years ago. Stony, the guy with stonykins.com, and I were flown out to California to by Facebook, because he started the pumpkin carving group on Facebook.
Oh,
And
really?
there's about 15,000 members of the pumpkin carving group. And we all post our pumpkins that we carve, and people have questions. So we'll answer the questions about how they do certain things or whatever. But they flew us out there. They rented this old house, and they were doing some commercials on pumpkin related groups, or on Halloween related groups. And Stony and I did the one on pumpkin carving, and they had the makeup artists there, and they had it catered. There was all this great food, and they had the sound technicians, and I mean it was a major production. We were there for 2 days, and we ended up making this commercial that they played for a while on Facebook about the pumpkin carving group, and I was kind of the main guy in there. I'm not very good at acting or anything, so they had to do a lot of cutting, but they got a little bit out of it and got me carving some pumpkins
I'm sure.
and
Yeah.
it, and then they had flown out about 30 of the pumpkins from that I shipped from
Oh
my
my
house
gosh.
and had them all up on in the background and everything, and so that was a lot of fun. That was kind of an experience that I'll probably never have again.
Well, maybe not. I mean, if you're on the Today Show, you're going to be doing this a lot. Uh, so were you on the airplane putting your pumpkins in the overhead bin or?
No, no, I
Oh,
shipped them
okay.
all out ahead of time because
Okay.
they're pretty bulky.
Yeah.
Pumpkins are pretty bulky to ship.
Are the foam pumpkins a lot lighter, I'm assuming, than a regular pumpkin?
Yeah, they're a
Yeah.
lot
Okay.
they're a lot lighter, and they've got a thin wall on them,
Okay.
and they're not very heavy. So the ones that I have to carve, and then I attach them to these metal shelves with zip ties, so the wind doesn't blow them over. Because
Oh.
for years I was just moving them one at a time, and I'd put them up on the shelf, and if a gust of wind came along, it would blow them off the shelf, and sometimes they broke, and sometimes they didn't. But now I've got 9 attached to a shelf with these zip ties, so I can just pick up 18 at a time, really one shelf in each hand, and move them around and stuff. So it took quite a few years to come up with the display system with the PVC racks and the shelves and the Velcro or the zip ties and all that to get where it's reasonable to try to set those up. Because when I was doing it one pumpkin at a time, it took a long time.
Oh, I'm wondering. So, do you ever feel like, hey, look, I'm the artist, I'm the talent here. Someone else should set up this PVC pipe, or
Uh,
do you think it's all fun? You like all of it?
yeah, I like the whole thing. Every once in a
Okay.
while, I'll get one of my grandkids to help me do some stuff, or a couple times I've actually paid neighbors to help me set up some of the stuff. But that's part of the whole experience is putting everything together and setting it all up. And
Yeah, a friend of mine, an artist friend of mine, when he draws too many pumpkins, he says he's going out of his gourd. So I don't know if you ever feel that
yeah,
way.
but I have to tell you, the true artists in this whole thing are the people that make the patterns.
Oh
To
yeah.
me, it's this the carving them is like a paint by number
Well,
thing,
it's still
you know,
hard, but I get what you're saying. Yeah.
and it does take some technique to be able to do what they say to do in the patterns. But the way these guys make patterns, it just amazes me that they can come up with to tell you what to cut out and what to shade and how to do it, and then all of a sudden, there you go. There's the picture that they were talking about.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, so you don't ever design patterns, or do you do that sometimes too?
I do once in a while. Sometimes somebody will say, "Oh, could you do a pattern of," for example, somebody in my neighborhood had a son who was on a mission, and they said, "Could you do a mission with his missionary tag and the tie that he wears and the name of his mission on it?" So I would put something together and figure out what I needed to carve. Um, Another one that I made, I've done a self-portrait of myself, and I
Oh,
had
wow.
I had to make that pattern. I just took a picture and then I made the pattern off of that, uh, and the optical illusion ones are kind of I have to make that pattern because I've got the picture, but I don't know what to cut out and what not to cut out or what to shade, not shade. So I
Right.
do a little bit of pattern making, but I'm not really very good at it. So I've had a few people ask me to do their dog and a few other things like that, and it just takes forever to make the pattern. So usually I go to Stony and I say, here's your $30.
Oh, I see.
Make me this pattern, and then I charge the person that wanted me to do it, uh, you know, that amount of money extra rather than. But usually I can get a pattern that's already made. Sports logos, I do a lot of those. Oh, and then
Oh,
I've got a lady over the last several years has she she works with dentist offices, and so she wants to give them something, to try to help get their business, and she's ordered a bunch of pumpkins for different dentists' offices. And
Wow.
and so I have to kind of design. I get their logo, but then I have to figure out how to carve it. The most elaborate one I did was probably one with this moose with a big smile and a little shiny grin, coming off of his bright teeth, and that was a pretty difficult one to do, but it turned out great.
Now that you're saying this, I wonder if we need to get a happiest retirees pumpkin. Maybe I'll check with the
Oh, sure.
boss.
Yeah, if you've got a logo, I could carve it for you.
All right. And I was wondering if when you carved your self portrait and then you showed it to your wife and she said, "Wait a minute, you just carved George Clooney," and you tried to pawn that off.
No,
Uh,
no, no. No, it
okay.
looks a lot like me, and then I carved one of her, but she didn't like being a pumpkin, so it
Oh,
was it was one that blew off and broke, so
oh,
so I haven't
yeah.
carved her another one.
And no, I also wanted to say, so when people come by your house to check out the pumpkins, I think you put out a basket for food donations to the Bountiful Food Bank. Tell
Right,
me a little
yeah.
bit about that.
Well, the last several years, I thought, there's a lot of people coming by here looking at these, and I don't charge, for the display or anything like that. And I thought maybe I could figure out a way to help out the Bountiful Food Bank. So I put out a basket, and usually I get at least a trunk full of donations that I can haul over there and just donate, just to try to help people at the that need to use the Bountiful Food Bank. And a lot of people come by and say, "Oh yeah, that's a great idea." And they'll come back later and drop off some food because they didn't know I was collecting it. So
Oh,
they've been really supportive of that. There's a couple times people say, "Well, I don't have any cans. Can I just give you cash?" And and
is that a
so
yet? Can you do
no,
that, or you
no,
can't?
I tell them no, I can't really use cash. But anyway, that's a good way to try to help support the community.
And if there's a website for them, we're happy to put it on our show page when this episode is released.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, we can do all that, as well as it sounds like you and Stonykins work together. We're happy to let them know about him and your
Oh
website
yeah,
and
that
all that.
that would be great. Yeah, I
In
can I
fact,
can
the
give
two
you
of you are
those.
almost like not partners, but it sounds like you work together a lot.
We do work together a lot. There's been several times when somebody would contact me and say, "Hey, can you do this?" And it's just beyond my capabilities to make the design. I say, "Contact Stony because he can make the design for you and carve the pumpkin." And I really try to support him as much as I can because he so far this year he's come up with over 600 new patterns. And
Wow.
and you go in there and it costs like $25 for you can get up to like 400 patterns
Wow.
for $25. Or if you only want a few patterns, you can pay him $5. And it's the way he makes his living, but it's just a great service to us who like to carve the pumpkins, but don't really have the ability to and the artistry to design all these new patterns. So
Totally.
uh, I really like working with him.
Yeah. I was going through your Etsy shop, which is Ken's Pumpkin Patch on Etsy. And some of the ones you have are pretty amazing. You have John Wayne and it looks just
Right.
like him. I don't know how you did that. You have, like you said, Barbie. You have, that I think that is the witch from Snow White.
Right.
Um,
Yep.
you have, yeah, lots of cat. Oh, is that the night? Yeah, the Nightmare Before Christmas. You
Oh,
have the
yes.
Munsters.
Yep.
Okay. Anyway, there's too many lists, but
Yeah.
people should really go check it out. It's really cool.
I try to do a lot. And what's really fun is when they're there, they are looking around and they're saying, "Well, okay, we better go." And then they say, "Oh, wait, no, look at that one." And so I've got them all spread out just randomly, except for the Harry Potter ones are all together, but everything, and people just keep looking and looking, and I'll have Rocky and Bullwinkle. I don't know if you're familiar with them, but
Yeah. Yeah.
you know,
Oh,
and
Rocky.
these
Right.
these older
Yeah.
people say, "Hey, that's Rocky and Bullwinkle," or
Yeah.
Boris and Natasha, and a lot of the kids don't know who they're talking about, but
Yeah.
it's just fun to to have such a wide variety of things.
I think even if they don't know, it looks like a fun moose and squirrel, right?
Sure.
Isn't
Yeah.
both? Yeah.
Yeah. Rocky and Bull. Yep. So if people are interested, I do have a Pinterest page where I've
Oh,
got about 500 pumpkins posted on that, and that's, yeah, again, just Ken's Pumpkin Patch on
okay.
Pinterest.
Ken's no apostrophe, it's just
Right.
Kens. Yeah.
Yes, that's right.
Okay. Well, okay. So Ken, we can get back to we will get back to pumpkins, but I want to do a quick summary of your primary career, so that I can kind of get into how you decided to retire
Sure.
and that. So I'm just going to quickly tell people you started as a petroleum engineer,
Right.
and then you went to work for the county in Wyoming as their economic development coordinator.
Right.
Then you became the economic development person. Then maybe the most important job of all is you met and married your wife,
Yeah.
and she was already living in Utah. So you
Right.
moved there and you had to commute 84 miles each way to Wyoming for like 2.5 years.
Correct. Yep.
Then you found a job in Farmington, Utah,
Right.
working for the city planning department.
Yes.
Um, and let's see, was that the last gig
Yep.
before you
That was
retired?
the last job I had before I retired.
Okay. And you retired how many years ago? Not
It's been almost 5 years. I think it'll be 5 years in October.
okay. And how did you know when it was the right time to retire?
Well, you know, I kind of had a goal to retire at 55 like my dad did. But
Wow.
55 came and went, and I just kept working and working, and finally I just had a feeling that, I'm just I think I worked about 39 or 40 years once I graduated from or from college.
Okay.
And I just got tired of getting up and going to work every day. And so I gave my boss several months notice, in the planning department before I decided to quit. But it was really just kind of a feeling of I'm just tired of working now. And of course we had, a financial advisor, and we went through all the uh, evaluation of what would my annual income be, and what would my expenses be, and can I afford to do that? And we had paid off our house, so we didn't have the mortgage anymore, and it just seemed like um, I was still young enough that I could enjoy retirement, and I was felt financially set enough that I could go ahead and retire. And I was getting a little tired of going to work every day, so I decided, well, that's about time I better do it.
Feels right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what does retirement mean to you?
Well, it it it's really nice because it just really freed me up to do the things that I enjoy doing, and that I wanted to do but really was too tired to do, or I had to go to work every day so I couldn't do it. But things like being able to go to all of our grandkids soccer games and baseball games and that kind of thing, and helping out if they need if our kids need a babysitter for their kids, you know, for a few hours in the afternoon, and just things like being able to go to the bank
Oh, right.
while the bank is open, or make a doctor's appointment where I don't have to take off time to go do it, or
Yeah.
just be able to lay around for an afternoon and read a book, or you know now my my wife used to call herself a pumpkin widow because I would come in the month of September and October. I would come home, eat dinner, and go out and start carving pumpkins all night long. Well,
Yeah.
now I can carve for an hour in the morning or something, and just at my own pace, and then in the evening we can go to a play or go to a movie or sit around and watch some TV or anything like that, and she doesn't have to feel like she's just being left alone while I'm out in my little shed carving pumpkins.
Right.
So, it's just kind of great to have the freedom to be able to do the things you want to do when you want to do them. Of course, it gives us more time to travel, and we like to take cruises. We just got back from a Rhine River cruise in Germany,
In Germany, right?
and
Okay.
so that uh, that frees us up to do that kind of stuff.
In fact, I you were probably carving so much that your wife is ready to carve you up. So I'm glad
she,
that changed.
yeah, she kind of thought I was kind of a fanatic. In fact, one of the first dates we had was up in Wyoming, and where she came to my house, and my brother was there, and we were carving pumpkins while we were watching the World Series, and uh, so she knew what she was getting into, but
Yeah, yeah. There was
but
no bait and switch. She
no,
knew.
no, but she's very supportive, and she just, she loves to see the pumpkins that I carve. She doesn't have any interest in doing it herself, but
Yeah.
she likes that I have a nice hobby that I can fall back on.
Right. Well, she doesn't need to do it. She's living next to the most talented
Yeah.
pumpkin carver in the universe, so she's all set.
No, I wouldn't go that far, but
And you had mentioned you could actually like go to the bank or go to the doctor without taking time off. I never really understood that part of the way the system is set up. Is that we're all at work during the
yeah,
time that you have to do those things. So like, how
right.
is anyone supposed to do it? So yeah, I'm glad in retirement that gets a little easier,
Yeah,
but
it does make it is a lot easier then.
um, so some of your other core pursuits, because it's a big focus of this show, is what people, kind of like what gets them out of bed in the morning. And I know for you, pumpkin carving is the biggest. But you have 7 grandchildren, so
Yep,
you're as involved as you can be. You love serving at church,
yep.
traveling, which you mentioned. You just went to the Rhine River in Germany. You play the trumpet, which is a pretty cool thing.
I started playing the trumpet when I was in 5th grade, and I played all through high school. And then I considered either becoming a trumpet player or becoming an engineer when I was going to college. And I soon found out I wasn't a good enough trumpet player to become a trumpet player, but I still continued to play in various groups through college. And like I was in the University of Wyoming marching band and stuff like that. And
Wow.
then, but once I graduated, then I really didn't have much opportunity to play. And every once in a
Yeah.
while, I would pull my horn out and play. And then up in Evanston, Wyoming, where I was living, uh, I had a friend who was a judge who worked at the courthouse with me, and we formed a big band. And
Oh,
so for about 10 years, I was in the Evanston big band, and we rehearsed on a regular basis, and that was pretty fun. And then he and I started a community band, and we put on concerts on Sunday nights in with this community band during the summer, and so that was fun. But then when I moved to to Farmington, then I kind of didn't play for a while. I got in one brass band that it was made up of these really old guys. One guy played the tuba, but he had a oxygen tank hooked up the whole time,
oh,
and
wow.
then
Whoa.
another guy one day didn't show up for rehearsal. He couldn't play, and they said, "Oh yeah, 5 of his teeth fell out." So I was in
Okay.
that for a while. So
Yeah.
then 2 years ago, I saw an advertisement where they were looking for people for a community band in my area. And so I decided I would try that out and went to the first rehearsal, and there were like 80 people there. And some of them were people who hadn't played their horns for 50 years, but some of them were college students that were music majors. Some of them were band directors. Some of them were professional musicians. And so I've played in that for the last 2 years, and we rehearse every week. We're taking a little break right now during the summer, but that has really brought a lot of joy to be able to play in a nice, good group on a regular basis.
Is that so? That's different than the Harmonic Winds of Utah, or is that what
No,
that is?
yeah, that's what that community
Oh,
band is called, is the
oh,
Harmonic Winds of Utah. Yep.
okay. And I do like that idea where you become an engineer, which most people think of as a very skilled and difficult profession. And you're saying, well, I only did this because the trumpet was too hard.
Yeah, well, that's about the way it was.
That says a lot for trumpet players. I'm
Yeah.
sure they'd love to hear that. Um, so okay, we talk on this show. We like to talk about how the road to a happy retirement, and I know you consider yourself a happy retiree. So you're on the perfect show. But it doesn't come without some challenges, and I was really touched by the challenge that you had and what you were able to do with it. So you got a divorce after well, you got a divorce and you were a single dad for 15 years. So
Right.
and that was a big challenge, but you made it work. And then when you married your wife, you now had two stepdaughters, and it
Right.
was a long journey to get them to like you, right?
Yeah, it was. Well, first of all, I dated their mom for a while before they knew about it. And, uh,
Yeah.
and so when they did find out about it, I had invited them to go to the, Nutcracker Ballet here in Salt Lake City.
Okay.
And and, that's when they kind of found out that we were dating. And unfortunately, they saw us holding hands from the back seat, and so
Uh-oh.
so they were not really very happy with, me as, doing this with their mom.
Yeah.
So anyway, eventually we got married, but they were not happy with that whole arrangement. Um, and the thing that finally, I think, um, broke the ice kind of with at least with the youngest one. The oldest daughter, Casey, she was okay. She didn't mind too much, but Hillary, our youngest daughter, just really did not want to accept me, and but she was having trouble with math. Well,
Ah.
I happen to be an engineer, and I so the math that she was having, don't ask me how to do any calculus anymore, but the
Right.
the algebra and the math that she was doing, I could help her with.
Yeah.
So finally, from a very struggling math student in about fifth and sixth grade, in seventh grade, she got the award for the outstanding math student in seventh grade, and I
Holy
and that
cow.
was we credit that to me helping her almost every night. Sometimes she got pretty upset because I was kind of tough trying to make her learn this stuff, but in it was kind of after that she kind of accepted me, and now we're just close as can be, and just a very loving family, and it all worked out in the long run, but it was a little tough there for the first couple 3 years.
Well, I can imagine that. It's just a good thing she didn't ask you to help her with the trumpet.
Yeah.
I'm glad it was an engineering related question.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so I do want to mention, because we have a lot of animal lovers who listen to the show. You own two cats. I don't know
Right.
if you like dogs too, or if you prefer cats, but you own two cats. What are their names?
um Gray, who's a gray cat,
Okay.
and Clover, who is one that we inherited from somebody else, and she's also a gray cat.
Oh,
But
okay.
yeah, they've got their own personalities, and
Yep.
I grew up with cats in my family, and all through college I had my own cats, and so I've always been a cat lover. I like other people's dogs,
Yeah.
but I'm just not a big fan of taking care of dogs and having to worry about them if you're going out of town, and just
Yeah.
kind of the responsibility you have as a dog owner. With cats, they kind of take care of themselves.
Yeah, I think the pros of cats are that, or one of them. And dogs are they love you a little easier, but they're harder to take care of. There's
Yeah.
more stuff you have to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do either of the cats sit and watch you carve pumpkins?
No, because I've got a big industrial wood vacuum thing to
Oh,
suck up the pumpkin dust, and the Dremel that I use is pretty loud, and so they don't really hang around too much while I'm carving pumpkins.
yeah, that noise, cats don't love that, yeah.
Now when I do I still carve a few real pumpkins, and I do that in the house, and if I'm sitting there watching TV while I'm carving a pumpkin, at least one of them will jump up and just kinda hang out while I'm doing
Yeah.
that.
Oh, that's nice. Um, okay, so you're carving a lot of pumpkins, but I wanna ask you what a perfect day looks like for you.
Oh, well, I'd say, just kinda get up when I wanna get up. If my wife and I have e-bikes, and so if we wanna go
Oh,
for a ride on our e-bikes, we can go do that before it gets too hot. And, um, I like to read, so, sometimes I'll just spend the day reading. We've almost during the summer, there's almost always some kind of a activity that our grandkids are doing that we can participate in.
like going to
Um,
sports events and that
yeah,
sort of thing? Yeah,
right. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. They play soccer and baseball and just keep pretty busy in the summer. We can stay up, watch movies. Sometimes we binge watch things and find out that it's 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. We're watching episode
Wow,
8 of the show for that day. So
you're
we do
like
that.
teenagers, yeah.
Well, kind of, yeah.
Yeah,
We have the freedom to do that because we don't
yeah,
have to get up and go to work right away. So
yeah.
one thing I did want to well, and one we've now got my wife was a school teacher for about
Oh,
20 years,
okay.
for almost 30 years, and so the school that she worked at, after I took kind of a year off, and then I thought, well, I'm gonna go in there and help her in her classroom. She was a 4th grade teacher.
Oh,
So I'd started going in every day and help her for a little while, and mostly I went around and during their math lesson to watch kids to see how they were doing and try to catch any problems they were have while they were working on it, rather than have them work everything wrong and then not know it, when they turn their paper in. So that worked really well, and then the principal came up and said, "Hey, we would pay you to come in and be a teacher's aide." So
really?
for a couple years, I went in and worked 3 or 4 hours a day as a teacher's aide, and and so now, and then when my wife retired, she did that for a year and we both did it, and then that was last year, and then this year we decided, no, we don't want to have that, daily commitment to go in there, but our grandson is in kindergarten now in that school. So
Oh,
we're going in a couple of days a week into his classroom and helping in that classroom to be kind of teacher's aides for an hour a day just to help them out a little bit.
so you're both doing that now an hour a
Uh-huh.
day?
Yeah.
Oh, that's nice, and it's a little bit of income?
No,
Oh.
no, we're just volunteers
Oh,
now.
okay, okay,
Yeah.
that's
We
nice.
did we just no we knew the kindergarten teacher, and we said, "Hey, do you want us to come in and volunteer for" it's only a couple of days a week and for an hour at a time, and so I don't know how much it's gonna help, but, I'd helped her last year as a teacher's aide, um, with the kids in kindergarten trying to learn just a very, very basic math, and so that's what she's got me doing now, and I really enjoy working on math with kids, so,
Yeah,
it's
that's
a
how
fun
you
thing
got
to
your
do.
daughter that's how
Yeah,
you, yeah, that's how you made that happen.
yeah.
Oh, that's great. What are the things that we did a big survey, to find out what the happy retirees do. Obviously it's not 100%, but so many of them, are involved with their grandkids or live near at least half of their adult children. So, I mean, I don't know how many kids do you have?
Well, we've got 4 kids. I had 2 and she had 2, and, 3 of them live in the Salt Lake area.
Oh,
Her 2 daughters are both within about a mile of us or less,
wow.
and they've got 4 kids between them, and then I've got a daughter who lives on the other side of Salt Lake with 1 child, and then my son lives up in Evanston, and he's got 2 children, and
Oh,
he's
okay.
a single dad up in Evanston. So they're all fairly close. We just all got together for one of his kids' birthday parties, down here in Salt Lake, and all the grandkids were able to get together and play at a jump, a trampoline place, and so that was a lot of fun. But it's nice to have them close where we can see them on a regular basis.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a real benefit. Yeah. Okay, well, now that we're kind of in the middle of college football season, I was just wondering, are you rooting for Utah, or and I know you went to the University of Wyoming, so who are you
Right.
rooting for?
Well,
That's
I
a tough question.
no, no. My wife went to BYU,
Okay.
and so for several years we had season tickets for the BYU games, and so I would go down there with her. And of course, BYU and Wyoming, when I went to the University of Wyoming, were just very big rivals,
Yeah.
and Wyoming didn't treat BYU very well. But
Oh. You mean
so
Wyoming was always beating them, or
no, they were just really rude to them.
oh,
The people in the stands, and just we didn't show a lot of respect to BYU. So
yeah.
anyway, I would go to the games and I would cheer for BYU, but she never did get me to stand up and sing the BYU fight song whenever they scored. That was just a little bit too much for me. So
Yeah.
so now uh, I still watch BYU and root for them, but we also root for Utah if they're not playing BYU.
Oh, I
If
see.
if the two of them are playing each other, then I'd have to vote for BYU.
So you don't hate BYU. It's
No,
just your first team is well, okay.
I,
It's
I don't
it's
hate
complicated.
Utah, but yeah,
Yeah.
BYU would be the first team. And
Yeah.
Wyoming, I don't even care what happens with Wyoming anymore.
Oh,
I just, I never, I don't know. I just
yeah.
never became a huge Wyoming fan. Although I
Gotcha.
have carved some pretty cool University of Wyoming pumpkins.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, that's good.
Sorry, everything gets back to pumpkins with me.
Of
I'm
course,
just
of course. As it should, right? I mean, if we're lucky, I mean, now if Wyoming could turn their mascot into a pumpkin,
oh, that
you
would be
might
good.
start
Yeah,
rooting
yeah.
for them again. Okay, well, Ken, we're kind of wrapping up here, so I just wanted to see, is there any other advice you might want to give to someone who is wanting to be a happy retiree, or that maybe they're a little scared to take the leap, or maybe they're retired but they're not really enjoying it? Do you have any tips for them?
Well, to me, I think the biggest way to enjoy retirement, and I've heard of people that this doesn't happen for, is that to have things that you're enthused about and that you really enjoy doing. Um, if you retire and all you do is end up sitting on the couch watching your wife cook dinner and fold the laundry and vacuum, I don't know how happy you're going to be as a retiree. But
Yeah.
if you can just, get some kind of hobby, or even if you don't know how to do something, take some piano lessons and learn how to play the piano, or take an art class and see if you like art. Try different things in the adult learning area so that you can, uh, have something productive to do. Um, if what you like to do is read and you want to read all day and you enjoy that, then you're probably going to be a happy retiree. But
Yeah.
if you want to have a variety of things to do, I would say do that. For me, I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and that's a big part of my life.
Yeah.
And there's service opportunities there. I've got a calling at church where I teach kids, on Sundays. We're preparing to go on a mission, which will probably it'll be like a family history research thing that we would just do out of our home, but it'll help
Oh,
other people to be able to uncover people in their family tree that they might not have been able to do otherwise. So that's the there's just so many opportunities like that are out there, and you just have to search for them a little bit. And the more kind of things that you can get involved with, then I think the happier you're going to be as a retiree.
yeah. Oh, that is great, great advice, and it's worked for you. You're a happy guy, so I
Yes,
think
I
people
am.
should listen to. They'd be well served to listen to you.
Well, I hope so.
Well, Ken Klinker, we're gonna put all of your websites on our show page so that people know where to buy your pumpkins, anything else they want to that you want them to connect to. And I just want to thank you on behalf of the Happiest Retirees podcast and the entire Retire Sooner network for coming on the show because it's been a real pleasure.
Oh, I've enjoyed it. I appreciate you asking me.
Well, thanks so much, Ken. You have a great day.
All right, you too. Thanks a lot.